Feed is looking good, and we are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bite Back Tour in the City of Bradbury. My name is Levy's son. I'm with the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. And you're joining us on the Bite Back Tour because you want to know how to bite back against these mosquitoes in your community. And we are happy to help you out, Bradbury. But first, introductions. I'm Levy's son with the district, but I'll go around the circle here and you can just go ahead and briefly just state your name and your title. Go ahead, Pablo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pablo Cabrera, and I'm the communication specialist here at the district.
Okay, James.
Hello, everyone.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm James Campbell. I'm an assistant vector ecologist with the district here.
And then Trustee Bisner.
Yes, I'm a Los Angeles County Commissioner serving the 5th District Supervisor, Catherine Barger, and my appointment is to oversee the elements related to mosquito and vector control, an excellent agency that I've overseen now for 9 years, and love the people, love the mission, and love my involvement.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely love your commitment to public health. And joining us soon, hopefully, will be Ali Gaspar. She's our outreach assistant and possibly someone from the city of Bradbury. But let's kick off with just the opening here. Big news, or maybe not so much big news, but West Nile virus is in San Gabriel Valley and it's circulating throughout the region, including in Bradbury. So one question we get a lot from residents around this time is, are you going to spray? Are you going to treat our neighborhoods? Our answer is right now, no. There's nothing indicating from our traps and our data that actually shows there's a need to do any area-wide treatments. We only do these kind of treatments in neighborhoods only if there is indeed a public health emergency. Unfortunately, to much chagrin of some of our residents, we don't do what we call comfort spraying. We don't just go out and spray just because. For very many reasons. Obviously, one is cost, but two, these mosquitoes can become very resistant to continuous exposure of pesticide. So the one big thing you can do to keep yourself safe is to tip out any stagnant water and use repellent. We'll get into more of that later. But right now, just know that West Nile virus is transmitting widely throughout San Gabriel Valley. And just to give you a brief summary of what West Nile virus is, to really simplify it, it is a bird disease. So the virus is only meant to transmit between birds and mosquitoes, but because of the way we've urbanized our environment here in Bradbury and around the region, we are also available as a blood source. So when mosquitoes do bite us and they're carrying that virus, the virus can enter our bloodstream when they bite. One thing to note, though, is luckily only about 20% of those who do get West Nile do exhibit symptoms, but unfortunately, there are still many cases out there where people may exhibit worse symptoms or may need to be hospitalized due to encephalitis. So please take this seriously. Other things in the news, tomorrow is World Mosquito Day. And I know there's a lot of hoopla about it, at least in our world, but it's a way not so much to advocate and celebrate mosquitoes, but more to just be aware of mosquitoes being an issue. And it just so happens, I believe, Pablo, you can correct me, is there a special birthday that also occurs at the same time tomorrow?
Yes, there is. As you can see on the screen, it is also Ada E's, our favorite uninvited guest here at the district. It's also her birthday, which we have perfectly aligned with World Mosquito Day. Who knew that she would be also born on World Mosquito Day? But Levy, like you mentioned, it's a great day to bring more advocacy and awareness to mosquito awareness and vector-borne diseases. And ADA is our very, very helpful tool that allows us to really drive that messaging and get a lot of information out. If you do follow Ada E's on Twitter and Instagram, you've seen that she's already been gearing up and celebrating all week. So it's just another great way for us to bring more awareness and unique ways to bring communications towards World Mosquito Day. So a very special early birthday to Ada E's, which is tomorrow on World Mosquito Day.
Yeah, it's always funny with Ada. You love to hate her and you hate to love her. Yeah, she's just awesome and unfortunate representation of things we don't like. especially these mosquitoes. Just joining us is Allie. Allie, want to give a quick hello and say your title?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Gaspar. I'm the outreach assistant here at the district. I'm actually currently not at the district. I'm actually here in front of Bradbury City Hall on the backside by this cute little park. And also with me, I have Sophia, who's the management analyst here.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sophia Moose. I'm the management analyst for the City of Bradbury. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, Sophia. Thanks for popping in. Feel free to is there any kind of a special announcement you want to tell to the residents of Bradbury about any events maybe coming up or anything regarding the city?
Unfortunately, we don't have any upcoming events. I know that we do have a community cleanup event that's actually coming up at the end of September. So there's compost giveaway. Actually, okay, that's actually fun. A compost giveaway on September 25th through 28th, I believe. And that'll be happening here at City Hall. And yeah, there's e-waste. There'll be an e-waste bin. But other than that, it's not really many community events happening, but that's all for me.
All right, thank you. And it's very important that everyone knows that when it comes to cleanup days in your city, take advantage of it, especially because the more clutter you can clean up around the home is less sources for mosquitoes to lay their eggs in, because you have no idea what we have found so many different types of mosquitoes laying their eggs in so many different kinds of containers. We have actually found them in e-waste as well that are just set outside, forgotten with water filled up. So please just gather all that up, clean up your homes. And yeah, thank you, Sophia, for letting residents know.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's get to know the district as well. You may have seen us driving through your neighborhoods and wondering, what in the world do they do? Well, let's start off with surveillance, because surveillance is one of the nexus points of where we get our data to take action on. So James is part of our surveillance team, and they use different traps to trap mosquitoes, not to trap away mosquitoes, because you can never get rid of mosquitoes through trapping, but to get a snapshot of how things are in Bradbury. So James, can you give us some insight on what you do with these traps, or what these traps look like possibly?
Yes, well, as the title entails, we do mainly surveillance work, and we're generally the eyes for the district. So we're going out there, and our main goal Monday and Tuesday is to set mosquito traps and then retrieve them. And as you had mentioned, our mosquito traps aren't used to really treat or take away or reduce mosquitoes. It's to get a snapshot of the population out there, and as well try to monitor disease that might be inside the mosquito population, and also concurrently the bird population, as we do pick up dead birds and other as well around the district. We also, like you said, collect a lot of data. When we bring the traps back, we will then ID them down to the species. We will get a count off of those species, and we'll divide that count by male and female. And when you're looking to test for diseases in mosquitoes, you could generally forget about the males, since they're nectar feeding. They mainly feed off the sweet honeydew water that comes from flowers. And the females are our main goal, because they're the ones taking that blood meal to make eggs. And what we'll do is, if we get the correct threshold in our trap, we'll set the mosquitoes aside, put them into a vial, freeze them, and then we'll send them off for disease testing. And we usually get about a day or so return cycle when we send them out on Thursday. So we know what's going on rather quickly. And that data is then able to be used by our technicians out in the field who do the mosquito control. And they'll be able to go off the counts and even the disease surveillance that we're doing, and kind of determine how they're going to approach their area and what needs to be looked at and even monitored, and even if they need to start inspecting harder for new sources.
James, quick question: Are there different types of mosquitoes that people may face in Bradbury?
Yes, you do. You have, like you just mentioned, our new invasive Aedes mosquitoes, but we also have our more common mosquitoes, one being the Quinque fasciatus, the Culex quinque fasciatus, commonly called the underground mosquito. Sometimes it's called the southern house mosquito as well. And this is one of the big kind of nuisances in our neighborhoods. And she will come up out of the underground, as her name applies, and she'll just find habitats that she could use as not just breeding sources, but estivation sources and resting sites. So Female mosquitoes will also need plant nectar as well to subsidize some of their energy needs. So they will look for lush yards with a lot of shade and other things like that that help create humidity. Being an insect, they have an exoskeleton, so they could be easily desiccated in high dry conditions or high heat dry conditions.
And these are the ones that I think residents growing up in Bradbury knows as the one that bite at dawn and dusk, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Like our 80s, they're called the daytime biters. But with mosquitoes, they generally don't bite all the way throughout the day. They mainly start early in their period and then late in their period. So if they're a night biter, they'll start in the evening. You'll see a lot of biting, and then right before they're going to go back in the early morning, you'll see them attack really heavily again.
Okay. And we also have the other types of mosquitoes, other group or genus, 80s. And I think this is the one that's definitely raising a lot of concerns from residents, because you can't go outside for maybe 30 seconds before getting bit up by these up and down your leg. Can you tell us a little bit more about these guys?
Yes, these are a highly aggressive biter. And as I mentioned earlier, they bite during the day. So you're noticing them even more than you do our normal mosquitoes. And these guys tend to be particularly small, so you may not notice them right away as they hover around you. And they're very shy or skittish biters, so they don't tend to land on you when they go to bite, even though in this picture you see them landing. You'll often see them hovering around the site they're looking to bite, and they'll take repetitive bites in that area. So you may get hit 4 or 5 times before you even know it. And that's one of the reasons why, including the mechanism that their mouth uses, that you get a lot of reaction or welts to the bites themselves.
Awesome. And so these are the types of mosquitoes that you face in Bradbury. And if you're just joining us, this is the Bite Back Tour in the city of Bradbury. We're just talking to James here regarding his work in surveillance on monitoring all these different species of mosquitoes and making sure we test them for any diseases they may carry and spread to people. Is there anything else you want to show us before we move on to operations, James?
Not currently. I would like to come back and then I'll show you guys our rabbit trap and talk a little bit about that. Yep.
Way to tease us. All right. Well, we'll circle back to you, James, so you can see that trap.
James, I actually have a quick question for you. We touched base on it earlier when we were talking about West Nile virus, and you mentioned how you guys are the ones that pick up the dead birds. Can you give more information into, why dead birds are a big red flag or indicator of West Nile virus in the area?
Oh, yes, I can. Bird populations are actually the main reservoir for West Nile virus. So large mammals like humans, horses, even dogs and stuff, we are actually so big that mosquitoes can't draw the virus back out of us because it's not in large enough quantity. So birds tend to be they're small enough to circulate the disease in a high enough rate through their body. So when the mosquito goes and bites them, it pulls right out of them. And birds then tend to be the ones that are actually kind of spreading it throughout the area originally in the season. So as the bird populations migrate in, new birds or freshly hatched birds aren't going to have really a resistance to the disease. They don't have any antibodies built up or anything like that because they haven't been exposed. So those guys are usually the first ones to get hit, and then they will actually start showing signs and dropping dead first. And that's why we tend to actually go and collect dead birds, especially crows and some of the house finches and stuff like that that are highly susceptible to West Nile virus, because that's a good indicator of where it's kind of moving in general. And it's just a good practice since they are the main reservoir.
Thank you so much for that insight. So clearly our surveillance department is bringing in all that information, and then it goes to different departments. One of the departments it goes into is operations. Now, operations are probably the people that you see most often stopping in Bradbury in the public spaces, like near the gutters, public sources where there might be stagnant water, like a pond, or even any kind of river or stream channels. They're there. And they're the ones you see doing a lot of inspection, but also the ones doing a lot of the control based off of what may be present in the data that is given to them from surveillance, and also combined with what they see on the ground. So these are the folks that are able to prioritize where some of the high-risk areas may be, respond to them, and provide better input and treatment if necessary to certain areas. And they're the ones you actually may interface with quite frequently as residents and even folks working in the city of Bradbury. So big props to these folks. The men and women in operations also are out in the field a lot. Come usually, doesn't matter if it's 110 degrees or if it's really cold, they're out there looking for these mosquitoes, because the way we've urbanized Bradbury and also all the other cities in San Gabriel Valley has almost forced our agency to work year round. So a lot of times when it's the dead of winter, it's maybe 50 degrees above ground, but these mosquitoes can still thrive beneath our feet. That's in these underground storm drain systems. And because these underground storm drain systems are so stable in their climate that it can stay relatively warm, and mosquitoes can actually thrive and survive through our mild winters in the underground systems, which is why sometimes when you're maybe it's a week out from Christmas or the New Year's and it's a really warm day and you go outside and suddenly you're getting bit by mosquitoes, you're probably thinking, where in the world are these mosquitoes coming from? Well, there's a good chance it could be from someone's backyard, or maybe they could be from one of these underground systems. Luckily, though, we do have teams that go out and monitor and treat for any of these mosquitoes that may be underground.
And maybe if I could add to that, we've had the pleasure of joining our operations staff out in the field. For example, this photo on the left with one of our technicians, John, this, I remember it was in winter time. We were both in sweaters while we were with him out there. And this was a storm drain right in front of an elementary school. So again, just emphasizing that mosquitoes are still very present even in the colder months. And we also have to remind ourselves, we live in sunny Southern California. So while we have great weather, we also pay a price for it. And that comes with mosquitoes all year round. So just being aware that even though we might not be putting on sunscreen all the time, but mosquitoes are still very present even in some of the colder months.
And if I could jump in right now, this is Jamie Bisner. Another contributory element are the some oftentimes now required rain barrel water recovery systems on new and remodeled construction that hold water, but oftentimes it's stagnant water and not drained properly, used for irrigation like it's supposed to be. And there are small vents and whatnot that permit entry of mosquitoes and the laying of and cultivation of the eggs.
That's actually a really good point, and that's actually very hidden from many people's public view. And many of you may see this construction going around in your cities where they're putting in maybe large cisterns or trash capture devices or water reclamation or water reusable kind of containers underground, but also above ground. Some cities I know may mandate, for new construction or maybe even renovation, require the use of rain barrels. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of rain here in Southern California. So those rain barrels may end up sitting there with some water at the very bottom, just churning out mosquitoes left and right. So if you do have any kind of rain barrels or any kind of system where you're trying to capture water and save it, please use it for your gardens, for anything around your home. Don't let it sit there for too long. Trustee Bisner makes a very good point.
Yes, and I'll just close with, I had been working on a lawsuit a couple of years back on the 35-unit condominium complex down in San Gabriel that required a 35,000-gallon cistern underneath the underground parking garage, where it would be just an ideal location and with lots of entries and exits for mosquitoes. And really the proper temperature, as you've discussed, related to storm drains, not much different down there. That's a big reservoir. They never drain completely. They're kind of rough poured. So a lot of potential for a lot of mosquitoes to breed.
Right. And all the more reason for us to be a year-round operation to keep everyone safe. Pablo, is there anything else regarding operations that we should touch on before we move on to Ali?
And I also want to emphasize too, our operations staff do go to residential homes and like you mentioned earlier, Levy, do inspections. But one thing that we like to emphasize is that while our operations staff can easily access public areas, residential homes are some of the hardest ones. And as you can see this photo on the left, this is just a plant rooted in stagnant water, and that alone can be such a huge problem in just one neighborhood that just breeds mosquitoes. And that just sits on somebody's property, and it could be in somebody's backyard and we have no idea. And it's wreaking havoc on a neighborhood. So just making sure that we're all working together and doing our part to be cognizant of any stagnant water around our yard, or anything that we're doing where we're holding water, like you mentioned earlier with rain barrels, making sure that we're using that water and making it part of our regular water use is super important. And as well, giving big props to our operations staff for the pool program that they do, where they send out notices, and it's all very automatic and easy for all of our residents. If you are a pool owner, if it's clean and functional, you don't have anything to worry about. But once that water stays still, the pool pump breaks or something, the pool needs maintenance in any way, and the water sits still, that alone creates another big problem for any neighborhood. And that alone is creating millions of mosquitoes in just 1 week. So again, just being aware of that, and our operations staff works very closely with our residents, and we're on top of any pools that we see in our area. It's a whole process, and I give major props to our operations staff and how they manage the pool program, because that alone was almost in a sense revolutionary in vector control. And again, it's very easy for residents to interact with our operations staff when it comes to our pool program.
Thank you, Paula. Let's go ahead and pivot over to Ali. We can talk a little bit more about education, because sure, we can trap and surveil these mosquitoes and their diseases that are viruses they can carry. We can control them out in the field, but we can't forget about the people element of mosquito control, because we have a huge impact on what mosquitoes may be around us. So Ali, why don't you talk a little bit more about education in general and what we do?
Yeah, Levy, thank you. Well, mainly we just educate on like bringing awareness to mosquitoes themselves and also their diseases. We really focus on like why it's important to dump out the stagnant water, and also why it's important to wear repellent when you're outside, because a lot of people still don't know how dangerous mosquitoes are. Sure, they might be tiny, but they're definitely mighty with their diseases and everything. And whether we educate through, having a booth set up here at in the city or anything like that, or whether it's going into the schools, that we always find a way to, conduct outreach and really get, to speak to people and make sure that they're learning how to do that. And actually, I have here with me one of our preschool program activities that we do here, which is a little game that we like to call Loteria. Many people have heard it. And, they can't read the directions on the back, but it's a really cool activity that we actually do together. So we teach them how to play Loteria, and this is a mosquito edition. So we actually have a lot of different images that focus on source reduction. They also focus on what we do here at the district, in addition to some positive things, just like learning how to tip and toss. And I would actually like to show you guys some of the cards that we have that I'm talking about. So here we have El Técnico, you can't really see the back, La Muerte, which is a bird for West Nile virus, La Evidencia, and La Mano. And these are all sort of, making fun and poking the actual game itself, Loteria, but it's a really cool way for kids to visually see what we're talking about. In addition, it also gives us a chance to talk about why, the bird is a carrier of West Nile virus, or why, the hand is tipping out the water, like why that's important. So it's a really cool, fun way for kids to get to learn that. And we also, all of our programs are free and NGSS aligned, which is a really cool thing for teachers, especially now that everyone's going back to school. So that's just a little bit of what we do here in our education and communications department.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Now, obviously, we not only educate people or students, but what about in general, just eliminating stagnant water? Like, what do we usually say about stagnant water? Because people know mosquitoes grow from there, but are there certain specifics people should know about stagnant water?
Yeah, that it's the smallest amount of water can actually produce a lot of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, they don't need that much to grow onto. And whether that's, I can actually take a look and show you guys. just some different sources where mosquitoes can lay their eggs. Something as small as a bottle cap of water could actually hold up to 100, 150 mosquitoes just in one egg raft alone. And we actually have a lot of these sources, whether they're children's toys, stacked plant saucers, even dog bowls and pet bowls, or dishes, or even some plants, for example, this bromeliad and this lucky bamboo that's rooted in water. This bromelia can actually retain water within its leaves. And things like watering cans can hold water without you even knowing it. We have a lot of this just in their natural properties, which, like Pablo said before, is a difficult place for our technicians to get into because that's not what they're responsible for. So yeah, reducing all of this water is very important into really, the fight against mosquitoes.
All right, thank you, Ali. We are about 5 minutes to the end of this show. If you're just joining us, this is the Bite Back Tour in the city of Bradbury. We are just finished talking about stagnant water sources, but one thing I do want to point out with the limited time we have is watch your dense vegetation. Mosquitoes don't come out of dense vegetation or anything like that. But they actually like to use dense vegetation to stay cool from the hot summer heat. So if your home, your front yard or backyard looks like a dense forest, you might have a mosquito issue. And that's not because you're creating them, it's because you're harboring these adult mosquitoes that are retreating and seeking shelter from the heat. So Ali, what is it that you say? Ditch the density?
Exactly. Ditch the density and cut back what covers.
Exactly. And when you do that, it increases airflow and that in turn decreases the humidity on the underside of some of these leaves. So if you want to change up your landscaping, go for California native plants. They are very friendly to our local environment and they can increase biodiversity of our insects. And because you're not using so much water, it's good for everyone overall.
And Levy,
yes,
a question I always have on my mind and I always forget the answer to is how quickly can most of these mosquito species breed in a matter of days?
So James, feel free to jump in, but from the life cycle, the average life cycle for the mosquito is once they lay their eggs in the water, they can come out of the water in as little as, or on average about 7 days. They can give or take depending on the environment, but 7 days is usually all it takes from egg to adult.
Yeah, the average is around 5 to 7. And then as temperatures increase outside, you could actually see that go as quickly as 3 to 5 days.
Excellent, and thank you very much.
Yeah. So imagine like what Ali was showing us with the different sources, even a bottle cap or even like a children's toy filled with water. If there are 150 eggs laid in there, that's 150 mosquitoes coming right out in a week. So make sure you tip and toss all that stagnant water.
I think one thing I think is important to remember about the biology of the larvae is that they actually don't breathe through the water. They have little siphons, so they don't need to be fully submerged to complete their life cycle. So they're easily able to breed in like bottle caps or really shallow sources of water that you wouldn't think is possible.
Absolutely. All right, we're about...
One last thing, I hope we don't run over time, but when I was chairman of the board of directors for San Gabriel Valley Mosquito Vector Control District 5 years ago, I got West Nile virus up at Farnsworth Park here in Altadena. 5 rapid bites on my shoulder in the early evening. So dress light and loose and saturate yourself in DEET or whatever repellent you find works.
Absolutely. And yeah, Trustee Bisner, thank you for sharing that. It's a very real threat, so do not take it lightly. And we'll definitely get it. Actually, speaking of repellent, that's a great point now to bring up because we get a lot of questions from residents that ask, well, what repellents will actually work? So I'm going to throw it over to Ali. And Ali, could you answer that question? What repellent works?
Yeah, well, as you know, we already mentioned, DEET definitely does work, but one of my personal favorites is oil of lemon eucalyptus. In addition to picaridin and also IR 3535, all you need is one of those 4 ingredients.
Oh, Ali, I believe you're muted.
Oh, awkward. Okay. I was going to say one of those 4 ingredients, I'm not sure what you heard. One of those 4 ingredients that I mentioned, hopefully you heard all of them, but they were oil of lemon eucalyptus, DEET, picaridin, and IR3535. One of those, which should be the main active ingredient in your mosquito repellent, and you should be good to go. You can actually find that ingredient though on the front of your repellent label bottle. That's really important. So when you're shopping for it and you're trying to figure out what am I looking for, you're hit with a wall of repellent. All you need to do is look at the front label, and it'll tell you the active ingredient and also the percentage. Now, the percentage that you need is just letting you know, basically, the smaller the percentage, the less it will last on you. So you'll have to reapply more frequently, which might be okay depending on your activity that you're doing. For example, if I'm out here in front of City Hall in Bradbury, I'm only going to be here for about 30 to 40 minutes. I'm not going to need like 80% DEET or something like that, So just make sure that you're gauging your activity with also the right amount of mosquito repellent ingredients. And the way that you would apply it, you just apply it evenly and also read the directions for proper instructions. And you do not need to, do 10 sprays on one arm, for example. I think 2 sprays is sufficient, but the important thing and the key thing is just to evenly apply everywhere. And when regarding your face and your neck, you do not want to spray your face and your neck. You actually want to apply into your hands and then properly, evenly apply all over your face and then your neck. And that also works with kids as well. Do not spray their face, and make sure that as an adult, you are the one who is applying it on them.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. And then thanks to Luis, who's tuning in on Twitter, and thanks to Richard, who's tuning in on Facebook. Hope you're learning a lot. We're rounding out the end of this Bite Back tour in the city of Bradbury. So we're gonna move into just one little thing real quick, and that is the Bite Back program before we go to closing remarks. If you're in Bradbury and you wanna rally your neighbors, join us to work together in our Bite Back program. You can go online to bitebackchampion.org. What it is a grassroots approach where we work with blocks of neighbors and we find a way to oust mosquitoes from your neighborhood as best we can. And we work together to find localized solutions for each neighborhood. So join us, bitebackchampion.org. Pablo, I think, is pulling up the screen there. There it is. So well, that's going to SGB. Oh, wait, no. Okay, we're now at the social media site. Now we're going back to the sgbmosquito.org, or you can go to bitebackchampion.org, and that will get you to our sign up list. Let's go ahead and go through our rounds of closing remarks. So we will start with Pablo. Anything you'd like to say?
Yes, just reiterating our simple messaging that we have for World Mosquito Day, which is tomorrow, Friday, August 20th. Yes, we are celebrating the mosquito, but most importantly, bringing awareness to mosquito awareness. So making sure we're remembering 3 simple steps of tipping out any stagnant water, tossing unused containers, or making sure that we're storing them in a dry area where they won't collect with water. And just like we saw what Ali demonstrated, is protecting ourselves with mosquito repellent. I know with myself in my backyard, as soon as I step outside, I'm applying repellent if I know I'm going to be outdoors. So simply just tip, toss, and protect is a simple way to protect yourself from mosquitoes.
Thank you, Pablo. Go ahead, James from Surveillance.
Oh, I just want to say that I completely agree with you need to tip, toss, and drain any standing water in your yard. I also wanted to take a little bit of time just to show any viewers our gravid trap really quick. This is the trap you'll most likely see out in Bradbury being used. It's called the gravid trap because it looks to trap gravid mosquitoes. And those are mosquitoes which have taken a blood meal and turned that blood meal into eggs and are now looking to lay those eggs in stagnant water, which we mimic with our own created stagnant water that sits at the base of this tray. And then mosquitoes are sucked into the trap through this tube here as they go to try to lay eggs. And as you can see inside, left side has our fan with the power switch. This is the box that the mosquitoes are contained in, and this is a 6-volt battery. We just simply pull that out, pull that off, close the net, and our mosquitoes are inside.
Very cool. Thank you for showing us that. I don't think.
And then one other thing I do, repellents are important for us to use, but I also always encourage residents to keep their 4-legged friends, their cats and dogs, on a flea medication regimen. They don't only protect from fleas and ticks, but mosquitoes as well.
Very good point. We love our 4-legged friends. All right, we've got 2 more closing remarks. Ali, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I just want to remind everyone to always wear repellent when you guys are outside, especially now that it's hot. It should just be a part of your daily routine. Just like we don't leave the house without our masks, we also shouldn't leave the house without mosquito repellent. And also to sign up to be a Bite Back champion. We actually don't have any Bite Back champions in Bradbury. So you guys would be the first. And we're really excited to work with you and come up with these real solutions to beat mosquitoes in your neighborhood.
Awesome. And then finally, any closing remarks from Trustee Bisner?
Yeah, just a couple. First of all, it's very appropriate that Allie has a eucalyptus tree right over her right shoulder. And I haven't tried the eucalyptus lemon, and I think I'd like to because I'm disinclined towards the deed. It's a little bit oily and used facially. It can sometimes cause some burns and whatnot. So thank you for the very good background setup. On a number of levels, Allie. And then finally, as I mentioned, I had West Nile virus. That was about 6 weeks, and it was a terrible 6 weeks, like the constant flu, 4 days on, 2 days off. So do tip and toss, manage your properties appropriately, use the repellent when you're outdoors. It's what we have to live with now. I certainly have firsthand experience in that. And while we don't oversee other vector-borne diseases, a year after I got the West Nile, I picked up Lyme disease from a tick bite. So it's prevalent, and there's a whole lot of things going on. And thank you all very much. This was an excellent presentation.
Thank you so much, Trustee Bisner. And to all those in Bradbury, we hope you learned a lot in this just really casual conversation where we just chat about mosquitoes and all things related to what we do. Next week, we are going to be in the city or the community of Altadena, which Trustee Bisner will join us along with several folks from the Altadena Town Council. So join us next week, same time, same channel, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or our website. And we hope you stay safe and bite-free, Bradbury. We'll see.